Today I'm going to teach you tips and tricks on how to draw a paintbrush realistically with large scale, meaning life size. Okay, first of all, when we're looking at a paintbrush, we are drawing it the way that we see it. We are not picking up the paintbrush and tracing it. Okay, all paintbrushes have three parts to their object. They have the handle, part number one, the metal, part number two, and the bristles, part number three. Every paintbrush has these three things. When you are drawing your paintbrush, we want it to have life-size scale. So when you're looking at how tall and wide each of these parts are, you can use one of three different things. You can use your hand to determine how tall or wide it is. You can use a finger to determine how tall or wide it is. You can even use your pencil. Looking at this paintbrush is almost exactly the length of my pencil. If you really want to get technical, you can even use a ruler if you want to measure exactly how many inches or centimeters it is. We also know that a paintbrush is symmetrical. So if you were to fold this in half, both sides are exactly the same. If I were to draw a line down this, both sides are exactly the same. This is going to help us draw it. So looking at this paintbrush, I'm going to start bottom up, though you can really go up, down, or from down up, whichever way suits you. So starting down here at the bottom, I'm going to draw the handle first, then the metal, then the bristles. So I'm wanting to see how tall this is. I'm using my hand, and I can see that it is pretty much exactly the length of my hand to about right here on my palm. So when I come here, I can make a little tick mark on my paper for where it starts and where it ends. Okay, I can even move the paintbrush on top of that and check, and that's pretty close. Okay, so now I can see that the handle comes out a little bit and then comes in again and then back out. So it almost has like three different widths here, here, and here. It also has a really pointy bottom and a circle here for a rope or something to attach it. So I'm going to start here at the bottom. I could even lightly, if you feel like it, you can lightly draw a line through it to show that each side is going to be exactly the same. That might help with your proportions and your scale. So when I'm drawing this handle, I see that it comes out to about right here. So I'm going to bring this out. And when I'm drawing lightly. You want to be able to erase it like a secret that no one will know about. If you draw too dark, you will never be able to erase it, and everybody will be able to see your mistakes. So draw very lightly. I am barely touching my pencil to the paper right now. Okay, and I can see that the bottom of the metal will start about right here. I could also use my finger if I wanted to, from the tip of my nail to about right here in my palm, measuring that out. Yep, that dot makes sense for it. And I see that my handle comes out here. Still drawing very, very lightly. And then I see that the handle here and here, it kind of goes straight up into that metal piece. And there's my circle. Okay, now I'm ready for the metal. Every paintbrush has a metal. They're all different sizes. Sometimes they are a rectangle like this one. Sometimes they're a perfect square. Sometimes they are almost triangular in shape. Just depends on what kind of paintbrush you're drawing. Okay, so this one is a rectangle. So I'm going to draw my rectangle here, and it comes up from the length of my nail to my first knuckle. So I can use that to measure. That's about where the metal would end. And then the bristles. Bristles, the way that I like to do it, students always ask me how to do the bristles. I outline what the bristle shape looks like. So in this case, it's also a rectangle, and the top has kind of a crazy-ish line because all those bristles are coming together and it's kind of messy up here. And then you've got part 1, 2, and 3 of your paintbrush, just the general shapes and lines. Okay, so now I'm ready to go in and start refining my lines, erasing lines that I don't and keeping the ones that I do. And I can start adding details at this stage. So here I notice I want my handle to be a tiny bit thinner here. So I'm going to erase these lines and redraw. Anytime you see a mistake, you're always going to want to fix that when you see it. I'm bringing in this handle a little bit here, erasing the lines that I don't. I'm able to erase these completely because I drew them so light. Okay. I'm going to go into the metal to add details. Details on a paintbrush can be things like the numbers or letters you see in the metal, the lines that you see inside the metal, the paint splatters you see on the handle. Some handles even have letters or words for what kind of paintbrush it is or where it came from. Okay, so these are all things you're going to want to draw. So I'm going to start with the details in my metal. The line here at the top, it's about right there. The line here at the bottom has a bit of a space from the bottom to the top here. And then there's another line about right here. Okay, the word 2 inches, 50.8 millimeters. I see these diagonal lines here. I'm going to go ahead and draw those in now. Okay, erasing the symmetry line that I created, the very light symmetry line I created in the very beginning. Okay, I can put this on top just to kind of check how I'm doing. Looks like it's matching up pretty well, pretty close. Okay. For the bristles, you do not need to draw every single line that is in here. You will be here all day drawing those lines. So what I like to do is I just kind of make general lines, maybe even some broken lines that kind of stop and start to imply that there's a whole bunch of lines in there for the bristles. And that way it kind of gives it a texture and implying all those lines without actually having to draw them all. This one even has some kind of coming out a little bit here on the edges. It's not a very perfect brush. It's been used, right? Oh, and then I forgot these 2 dots here and here. That's keeping the metal attached to that handle. And last but not least is the words that are on my handle and any paint splatters that I see. So writing those words, I see that they're really small and they start about right here at the smallest part of my handle. Okay, and then I would be ready to add the paint splatter. There's more paint splatter on this side, so I'll use this side as a reference. When I'm doing the paint splatters, I really just kind of outline some of the shapes that I'm seeing. I don't feel the need to do every single tiny part, but I'm kind of picking and choosing some of the paint splatters that I want to outline. It almost kind of makes it look like there's little blobs of paint all over it. And there I have my paintbrush. At this point, you would start to decide if you want to outline and go over these lines with a thin Sharpie, or if you wanted to, for practice, keep using your pencil and just darken the lines that you want to keep so that you have less of the light, sketchy lines and more of your clear, dark lines. If it is on your project, you'll definitely want to use Sharpie. And there is tips and tricks on how to use a paintbrush.